Marcus Wellington had everything money could buy, yet at 42 he felt emptier than the grand halls of his estate. The successful tech entrepreneur had built an empire, but success had taught him a bitter lesson. When you have millions, you never know if people love you or your bank account. His relationship with Victoria, a socialite he'd been seeing for 8 months, had reached a crossroads. She spoke of marriage, of their future together, but something in her eyes always seemed to calculate rather than simply see him. The doubt had been eating at Marcus for weeks. Then came the riding accident that changed everything, though not in the way anyone expected. The fall from his horse had been real enough, leaving Marcus with a temporary back injury that would heal completely in time. But when the doctor mentioned he'd need a wheelchair for several weeks, an idea began forming in Marcus's mind. What if Victoria thought the injury was permanent? What if she believed his active lifestyle, his independence, his very mobility were gone forever? "I need to know," he confided to his longtime friend and doctor, James Morrison, who had been treating the Wellington family for 20 years. "I need to know if she loves Marcus the man, or Marcus the perfect catch." Dr. Morrison had his reservations, but he understood the weight of Marcus's doubt. "This is a dangerous game, my friend, but if you must play it, I'll support you. Just remember, lies have a way of revealing truths we didn't expect to find." The deception began simply enough. Marcus returned home from the hospital in a wheelchair, letting Victoria and everyone else believe his condition was permanent. The reactions came swiftly and told their own story. Victoria's initial shock seemed genuine, but within days, Marcus noticed the subtle changes. She visited less frequently, always had somewhere else to be, and when she did come by, her attention seemed divided. Phone calls became shorter, excuses more elaborate. "Maybe we should take things slowly," she said during one particularly brief visit. "You need time to adjust, and I need to think about what this means for us." Marcus nodded, his heart sinking even as his suspicions were confirmed. But if Victoria's behavior disappointed him, another person's response surprised him completely. Elena Rodriguez had worked for the Wellington household for 3 years. At 29, she was quiet, efficient, and had always maintained proper professional boundaries. Marcus had barely noticed her before, but now she became his lifeline in ways he never expected. Where Victoria grew distant, Elena grew more present. Not intrusively, but with a natural warmth that seemed to anticipate his needs before he voiced them. "Mr. Wellington," she said on his 3rd day home, appearing with a cup of coffee exactly as he liked it. "I moved the books from the high shelf to the table by your chair. I thought you might want something to read during your recovery." It was a small gesture, but it spoke of someone who actually saw him, who noticed that he loved to read, that he'd been glancing longingly at his library shelves. As the weeks passed, Elena became the bright spot in days that might otherwise have felt dark. She had a way of talking to him that treated him like a whole person, not someone to be pitied or managed. "My grandmother always said that healing happens in layers," she told him one afternoon as she arranged fresh flowers in his study. "First the body mends, then the spirit catches up. Sometimes it takes time to feel like yourself again." Marcus found himself looking forward to these conversations. Elena spoke of her family, her dreams of someday opening a small restaurant, her evening classes in business management. She had goals, ambitions, a full life beyond these walls. "What kind of restaurant would you open?" he asked one day, genuinely curious. Elena's eyes lit up in a way that reminded Marcus what passion looked like. Something simple but beautiful. A place where families could come together, where the food would taste like love feels. "My mother's recipes, but with my own touches." "That sounds wonderful," Marcus said and meant it. He couldn't remember the last time Victoria had spoken about anything with such genuine enthusiasm. Meanwhile, Victoria's visits became increasingly sporadic. When she did come by, she seemed uncomfortable, checking her phone frequently and making polite conversation that felt hollow. "The Hendersons are having their annual charity gala next month," she mentioned during one visit. "I wasn't sure if you'd want to attend given your situation." Your situation. The word stung, not because they referenced his supposed disability, but because of how they reduced him to a problem to be solved rather than a person to be loved. Elena, on the other hand, never treated his wheelchair as a limitation. She rearranged furniture to make navigation easier, but she did it matter-of-factly, the way someone might adjust the temperature in a room. When he expressed frustration about missing his morning rides, she suggested they take drives through the countryside instead. The autumn colors are beautiful this year, she said, pushing his wheelchair onto the estate's wide terrace. Maybe we could take the convertible out sometime. You could still enjoy the fresh air and the scenery. It was Elena who noticed when Marcus seemed discouraged. Elena who found ways to make his days brighter without making a production of it. She brought him news from the outside world, updates on his business that she'd gathered from his assistant, small tokens that showed she understood what mattered to him. One evening, as Elena was preparing to leave for the day, Marcus made a decision that surprised them both. Elena, would you join me for dinner? I mean a proper dinner, not you serving while I eat alone. She hesitated, clearly conscious of the boundaries that usually define their relationship. Mr. Wellington, I don't think that would be appropriate. Please, he said quietly. I've been thinking a lot lately about what appropriate really means, and I think it means treating people with genuine respect and kindness. You've shown me more of both in these past weeks than I've received from people who claim to love me. Elena studied his face, perhaps hearing something in his voice that made her reconsider. All right, she said finally, but let me cook. I've been wanting to try one of my grandmother's recipes. That dinner changed everything. Away from the formal dining room, sitting together in the kitchen over Elena's homemade pozole, Marcus felt more like himself than he had in months. Elena was funny, thoughtful, and had a way of seeing the world that challenged his perspectives without making him feel judged. You know, she said as they shared stories over dinner, my grandmother used to say that sometimes we have to lose our footing to find our foundation. Marcus looked at her across the simple kitchen table, this woman who had shown him what genuine care looked like, and felt something shift in his chest. Not pity or gratitude, but something deeper. Recognition, perhaps. The sense of meeting someone whose heart spoke the same language as his own. It was the next week that Victoria finally revealed her true feelings, though not in words. Marcus, darling, she said during what would be her final visit, I've been doing a lot of thinking. Maybe we rushed into this relationship. You're going to need so much care now, and I'm just not sure I'm the nurturing type. Perhaps it would be better if we remained friends. Marcus nodded, feeling relief rather than heartbreak. I think you're right, Victoria. We want different things from life. After she left, Elena found him in his study, staring out the window at the garden. I'm sorry, she said softly. I couldn't help but overhear. Are you all right? Marcus turned to look at her. This woman who had asked if he was all right not because of what he'd lost, but because she cared about how he felt. You know what's strange? He said. I thought I'd be devastated, but I'm not. I'm grateful. Grateful for the clarity, for understanding the difference between someone who loves the idea of you and someone who loves you as you are. Elena moved closer, her expression gentle but puzzled. Mr. Wellington, Marcus, he corrected. Please, just Marcus. Marcus, she began again, you deserve someone who sees all of you. Not your money, not your status, not even your challenges. Just you. Looking into her eyes, Marcus made another decision that surprised them both. He stood up from his wheelchair. Elena gasped, stepping backward in shock. Marcus, what? How? I can walk, he said quietly, guilt and hope warring in his expression. I could walk all along. The injury healed weeks ago. I've been pretending because I needed to know who would stand by me when I had nothing left to offer but myself. Elena's face went through a series of emotions. Confusion, understanding, and finally, something that looked like hurt. You've been lying to everyone? Yes, he admitted, moving toward her slowly. And I know how that makes me look. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but Elena, these past weeks with you have been the most honest I've felt in years. When I was with you, I wasn't pretending to be disabled. I was just being myself. Elena was quiet for a long moment, processing what he'd told her. The wheelchair, the whole thing. It was all a test. For Victoria, yes. But not for you. What happened between us, that was real. The conversations, the laughter, the way you made me feel seen, none of that was part of any plan. Elena looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. You lied to me, Marcus. For weeks. I did, he acknowledged. And I understand if you can never forgive me. But I need you to know that what I feel for you is the most honest thing in my life." Elena was quiet for several long moments. Finally, she spoke. "My grandmother also used to say that sometimes the heart sees what the eyes cannot. She meant that love looks beyond the surface, beyond what seems to be, to what actually is." "And what do you see when you look at me now?" Marcus asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Elena met his eyes, and in them he saw not the admiration he was used to, not the calculating interest he'd grown to expect, but something infinitely more valuable: acceptance, understanding, love. "I see a man who's been hurt enough to do foolish things out of fear," she said softly. "But I also see someone who was kind to me even when he thought he had nothing to gain from it. Someone who listened to my dreams and made me feel like they mattered." Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion. "They do matter. You matter." Elena smiled then, the first real smile she'd given him since his confession. "Then maybe we can start over. Honestly this time." "I'd like that more than anything," Marcus said. "But Elena, I need you to know that I don't want to start over as your employer. I want to start over as a man who hopes he might someday earn the love of an extraordinary woman." Elena stepped closer to him, close enough that he could see the warmth in her dark eyes. "You know what I think, Marcus Wellington?" "What's that?" "I think you already have." As the sun set over the estate that evening, Marcus realized that his deception, wrong as it had been, had led him to the most honest relationship of his life. Sometimes, it seemed, we had to lose everything we thought we wanted to find everything we actually needed. And sometimes, love came not from those who promised to stand by us in sickness and in health, but from those who simply chose to stand by us when it mattered most.